While 56% of landlords in Las Vegas are not being paid by their renters during the eviction moratorium, lawmakers in North Carolina are proposing a common sense change to the rental assistance program that would greatly benefit landlords. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have two interesting articles for you today, and they're going over issues in Nevada and also in North Carolina. And the first one has to do with how landlords are suffering through the eviction moratorium, especially small mom and pop landlords. And the second article, it's going over a common sense change to the rental assistance program that would greatly benefit landlords. And it's a change that I would have had implemented from the very beginning if I had been put in charge of this program, but no, they never actually talked to landlords before they put this thing in place, and it's caused all sorts of messes. So before I get into those two articles though, hit that like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of the rental assistance programs, okay? If you like them, if you think that they're a great idea, or if they're just completely unworkable for you. You know, I'm going to keep working to bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So, the first article, it comes out of news3lv.com, and it says, report, 56% of mom and pop landlords are not paid by renters under the eviction moratorium. Yeah, I brought this article up in my previous video. I meant to actually cover it yesterday, but I didn't get an opportunity to do that. So let's get into it and see what it says. The ongoing CDC eviction moratorium is causing further strain on landlords here in the Las Vegas Valley, specifically our mom and pop landlords. A recent report by Nevada Realtors and the Nevada State Apartment Association reveals that 56% of mom and pop landlords are not being paid by renters. Susie Vasquez with NVSAA said many landlords don't qualify for forbearance because they are rental income properties, leaving many landlords with limited options. So yeah, for a while they had mortgage forbearance available for people who lost their income during the pandemic and they wanted to just delay their mortgage payments. But because we own actual rental income properties, we didn't qualify for a lot of these forbearance programs, which means that we still have to keep paying our mortgage. And as I've said many times, the majority of landlords own their properties and have a mortgage on them, okay? They didn't buy them outright with cash. So yeah, when you still have to make your mortgage payment, you still have to pay your insurance, you have to still pay your taxes, you have to pay utilities, you have to pay for maintenance, you have to pay for capital expenditures. You know, in some cases, you might be paying for property management still, and you're not getting any income coming in. So yeah, that's really hurting small landlords right now. They often have a lower number of savings set aside because they do depend on a significant portion of the rent they're collecting to pay the mortgage. So many of them have exhausted all savings and all options, Vasquez said. The report also revealed that 41% of landlords nationwide are mom and pop landlords, meaning they are likely low income or seniors using the rental property for at least 20% of their income. So yeah, 41% of landlords are actually small mom and pop operators, you know, just owning a few units, not being these big multi-million-dollar corporations. So we actually make up a very large portion of the rental property stock out there. So when you hear all this anti-landlord stuff, keep in mind that there's a lot of very small landlords out there who are going to be suffering when they pass, you know, a whole bunch of restrictions on anything, you know, and it really hurts a lot of small mom and pop operators when there's an eviction moratorium in place like there is right now. I hear that some are putting their properties up for sale and unfortunately having to sell their properties in order to avoid foreclosure, Vasquez said. Vasquez said many new owners are not interested in renting to original tenants, causing the rental market to shrink and drive rent prices up. Hopefully, we'll start seeing a significant amount of rent assistance being distributed to landlords in order to overcome the cliffs that we're headed towards, Vasquez said. So yeah, Obviously, rental assistance for those who want to apply for it would be a good thing. But there's a lot of these different stipulations, etc., that are put on it that make it very difficult for landlords to receive it. So, and then that actually is a perfect lead-in to my second article, which is coming out of North Carolina, and it's coming out of WRAL.com, and it says, North Carolina lawmakers frustrated over back rent pitch a change to help landlords. Yeah, it's not very common when you hear about lawmakers that are trying to help landlords, but at least in this situation, I mean, they have a very good point, and it's something that I absolutely agree with. So let's see what they're going to propose here. Republican lawmakers pitched a bill Tuesday to let landlords, instead of just tenants, apply for federal rent assistance to boost interest in a $1.2 billion program in North Carolina. The state-run HOPE program and related programs in North Carolina's largest counties cover up to a year's worth of rent for tenants who make 80% of their area's median income or less. The state has struggled at times to get enough applicants, despite concerns that when the oft-extended federal eviction moratorium ends October 3rd, the state will see a glut of evictions. So what it sounds like to me is that the lawmakers, they saw that, hey, this rental assistance isn't, getting, people aren't applying for it enough. And so the idea that they threw out there was they're going to allow landlords actually to be the ones to apply for the rental assistance and not just the tenants. See, the way the system works in a lot of places now, the tenants have to be the ones who apply for rental assistance, or it has to be like a joint application between the landlord and the tenant. And what a lot of landlords were finding was that these tenants who weren't paying rent, they were 100% uncooperative, or they just didn't want to follow up with all this paperwork. They considered it too much of a burden, and they just realized that the eviction moratorium was protecting them anyway, and they had a free ride, so they didn't want to do anything else. But if you actually allowed the landlords to be the ones to apply, because we're the ones who are losing out on the money, not these tenants, okay? The tenants are getting a free ride paid for by the government by getting the rental assistance, okay? The landlords, we get paid rent by the tenant. So we're the ones who are losing money in the situation, and we are the ones who need to be reimbursed because the government put those eviction moratoriums in place. Senator Chuck Edwards argued Tuesday that landlords should be able to apply on their tenants' behalf, and he pasted language along those lines into House Bill 110. The bill was in the Senate Commerce and Insurance Committee Tuesday for discussion only, though votes may come later this week. Laura Hogshead, Chief Operating Officer of the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resilience, which oversees the rental assistance program, told senators the change isn't feasible. I do agree that it seems like common sense, she said, before explaining federal rules require the tenant to attest they've been impacted by the pandemic and that they haven't received any other rental assistance. Things that we don't think the landlord knows for certain, Hogshead said. See, basically the problem was created by the CDC or the lawmakers or whoever put the eviction moratorium into place that required this attestation by the tenant, okay? And this regulator here, she's sitting here and she's saying, hey, we can't allow landlords to apply for rental assistance because how are you supposed to know if the tenant actually suffered income loss? Well, here's my problem with that, okay? You told us that we couldn't evict the tenant, and now you're telling us that we can't collect our own, we can't collect any rental assistance without the tenant. So, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. You're just completely screwing us over. You're putting us in a position of disadvantage, okay? So the tenant, all they have to do is just stay in the property. They're protected by the eviction moratorium. They don't have to pay anything, and they have no motivation whatsoever to apply for rental assistance until after the eviction moratorium ends, which is also part of the reason why I am not happy with them continuing to extend it over and over and over again. We've been under some sort of eviction moratorium for 19 months now. I mean, this isn't some temporary thing. Landlords all across the country, they're getting screwed. And, I just told you about what was going on in Las Vegas. And, how long do they really expect us to last? But it is good to hear that there are some congressmen some state lawmakers, at least in one state, that are trying to figure out a way for landlords to help out, or to help out landlords, because across the country we're always seen as the bad guys, and I'm pretty much sick of the way that we've been mistreated throughout all of this.